Hey guys, welcome to Code Decode. In this video, we are going to look into top 5 design patterns that you must know before going to any interview. 99.9% interviewers will ask you about your design patterns for sure. And these 5 design patterns are the life saviors for you because if you don't know anything, just quickly reading for these 5 design patterns will help you crack that design pattern interview question. So let's get started. The first one is a singleton design pattern. The singleton design pattern ensures that only one instance of a class exists in the entire application and it provides a single global access point to it. And where do now remember, whenever you talk about any design pattern, be prepared that they are going to ask you about the real-time implementation that you have done in your application. So remember, the singleton design pattern is the simplest design pattern that you would have used. And where can you use these design patterns into for sure all the enterprise level applications will have a database connection, and these database connections are very costly in terms of performance and in terms of memory. That is why the database connection should always be singleton, that is only one connection, and you should do all the operations through that one database connection only. I'll give you the code example in a minute which will help you explain this better to your interviewer. The second is in the configuration classes, fourth is for logging, and fifth is for caching manager. Now, I'll give you a real-time example which you see around you, okay? A singleton pattern ensures that only one object of the class exists through the entire application. Think about it as you don't have to open 100 different connections for your different queries. Also consider one scenario that if you are in an office, okay, you want to print something. You send your document to a shared printer. Your friend also wants to, or your colleague also wants to print something. He does not go purchase a new printer, or the company does not purchase one printer for each of you or the employees. They don't do that because it is a costly resource. And that is why printer is a singleton object in the office which is shared across all your employees and colleagues. So that is the best real-time example you can give in an interview. Also, each class having its own database connection will prevent running out of connections quickly, wasting memory and time, and causing inconsistent data. Now, a code example that can help you is whenever you open a database class for connection, you make the database connection as static. You say that I'm going to establish the connection, and then you create a method called as getInstance, which will check is database connection already created. If it is not created, create a new one and return it. Else return whatever instance is already created in the system. And how would you use it? Just give a call to getInstance method, because this getInstance method is a static method. You just have to give it a call through class name. So no object creation. You have to have your private constructor which prevents any object creation. Then just from the class name, use a static method call for getInstance. Get the instance. This is going to be a singleton instance. You are not going to open another connection with this and execute the query. Now, a very important question from the interview perspective. Now, why would you use volatile in singleton class? The volatile is a very important concept when it comes to singleton. I'll give you your own example. We have created a database instance with getInstance method, which is a static method which returns the class of the database connection that you have created, so that you don't have to create another different connection every time you have to do some database operation. You just use a common instance, only one instance to do all the operations. This is perfectly fine in a single threaded environment. Now consider a case where there are multiple instances. Then that is where exactly the volatile comes into picture. So this volatile makes sure that every thread reads the latest value of the variable directly from the memory and not from the cache, because cache might have the dirty data. In singleton, this is very important because if multiple threads reach the same instance, and if it is not null at any point of time due to dirty read, they might create two instances at a time. For example, instance 1 is getting the data from memory, which is null, and instance 2 is having the dirty read data from cache, which is not null. Then the second will say, oh, it is not null, I already have an instance, I will return it. But the first one knows that the instance is already died. Then it will create a new database connection, and at the end you will have two database connections. One was the initial one and the second who checks whether the database connection is present or not. If it is not there, it will create new, and you will end up with two database connections, which breaks your singleton completely, because singleton is very important when the multi-threading comes into picture. The same thing without volatile, you will end up creating multiple instances, which breaks the singleton logic. So how would you now create the thread safe volatile? whenever you create an object of this, which is going to be checked as an instance is not null or null in the get instance method, you make this variable volatile. Keep the constructor private as usual. Check if it is null or not, but because it is double threaded, you have to make this class synchronized and then again check whether it is really null. If it is really null, then only create the new database connection. Otherwise, return whatever it is. So this volatile ensures that all the threads says the same value, and if it is null, it is a quick check, avoids unnecessary locking. It ensures only one thread can create an instance at a time, and the second check ensures that no other threads creates another instance, because if one is already creating, it got the null. The second thread checks and it also gets this instance is null. Both of them enters, but only one can access this block, and hence only one can create the new database connection. Then when this lock is leave or this lock is acquired by the second thread, it again checks. Was it null? It would say no, because now it is already created by the first thread. So it will say false and it will return the existing instance only. And when to use volatile and when not to use volatile. So basic version with no volatile is used when you want fast performance, you are not in danger because of thread safety, and you have a single threaded application with small scale. Synchronized method is slower and safer. It can be used for multiple threaded environment. But double check locking with volatile is also fast, is also safe. It is a best practice and it is used in a production grade applications.
Hey guys, recently we have launched a course covering an end-to-end full stack application using Angular as front end and microservices and Spring Boot as the back end. Also, we have used Cloud to deploy this application, and we have used CI/CD, that is Jenkins and Argo CD, for continuous integration and continuous deployment. The technologies that we have used is REST, RESTful web services, Spring Boot and microservices for backend, Angular for front end. GitHub we have used for version control system. Also, to make the code unit testable, we have used JUnits. We have used Sonar for code quality checks. Also, for containerization, we have used Docker and Kubernetes. And to deploy this whole application, we have used AWS and multiple services from AWS. Also, we have used SQL as well as NoSQL, that is MongoDB and SQL. On AWS, since for the SQL we have RDS, we have used those services, and Jenkins and Argo CD for CI/CD pipeline. Also, this is an architecture of the application that we have created where the front end is Angular and the back end is microservices. We have used ALB load balancers, Ingress for routing and load balancing. And we have used SQL and MongoDB for SQL and NoSQL DB management with Eureka Server and all those microservices counterparts. Now, this is the CI/CD pipeline. This is the CI/CD flowchart for the application that we have created on local. So this is something, a flow when you create an application in local, push it to GitHub, create a Jenkins pipeline, and do the CI/CD using Jenkins and Argo CD. And at the end, deploy the whole code at AWS EKS. Complete description of this course is covered in a very separate video. The link for that video is also given in the description bar below. And also the link to purchase that course from Udemy is also in the description bar below. So please go and check the description for all these links.
Now, the second important design pattern that you can talk about in your interview is a factory design pattern. The factory design patterns allows you to create multiple objects without exposing the creational logic. What do I mean by that? Now, suppose you are an e-commerce system. If you are selling something, you would have to take the payment, and you have multiple options to take the payment. You have UPI, you have credit card, you have PayPal, and many more. So if it is credit card or it is debit card or it is a payment, all of these are types of payment. So you can create an interface called as payment, and you can have a method called as get the payment. Now, credit card can get the payment using credit cards. UPI can get using UPI and so on. And debit card can have its own. Now, you can create a factory class and you get an argument in the method. Say that whenever a client comes and says, I want to do the payment through UPI. Then here in the argument, you will get the UPI. If it is UPI, you create an object of UPI payment class here. And you pay the amount using UPI, else you will get the way to add your 16 digits credit card or debit card number and get the payment in a different way. Both are the two different ways of getting the payment. But does this really, your user should know which object to be created whenever it is giving a call to your UI? Answer is no. It will just give a checkbox or a radio button click on the type of payment it would need to do. Internally at the backend, you will get this as what is the type he has selected, and based on that you can abstract everything, and you can internally create the object of which class, and then allow either 16 digit to be added or some xyz at the rate ybs or ibl or ybl to be created. And this prevents the client to know the exact class name which has to be instantiated. Your front end does not have to know which class to be called. If it is UPI or it is credit card or debit card, it can just give a call to your payment factory and just tell that in the radio button, user has checked this. You decide which class and what next to be rendered on the front end. It provides and improves maintainability, and adding a new payment method is also very easy because you just have to extend the payment, add your logic here, and add if else here during the factory pattern. That's it. In the real time, you can use this for telling the interviewer that this is how you have taken the multiple UPI payment methods into your system. And since it is in a small scale, we have not integrated with third-party payments as of now. Also, you can use this strategy as well as the factory pattern to give that encryption methodology. So there are multiple ways how you encrypt your passwords. This is the way how you can make sure that if the client wants to encrypt their data with SHA, with MD5, on which kind of encryption technology. So that there also you can give the real-time example. The third very important one is a strategy design patterns, which make sure that when multiple algorithm can apply the same task and you want to dynamically at runtime switch based on the user condition which class to be picked up, then strategy design patterns comes into picture. Again, think of it as an e-commerce website where you can provide multiple discount strategy. For example, there is no discount, you can just apply as it is. If it is a Diwali discount or festival discount or Christmas discount, use this kind of discounting strategy of 10% off. If it is a new user trying to purchase something from application first time, apply 20% discount, and at the checkout, you decide at runtime what is the strategy being picked up. Suppose whenever the user logs in, if it is a first user login, your front end might give you in the parameter that this is a new user login. Then you can apply the checkout strategy based on the new user discount strategy. So on the runtime, if you want to do this, again, strategy pattern is a much better way of deciding at runtime which class to be called. You don't need a factory like this to decide with if and else condition which is to be taken. It is automatically decided at runtime because all of them implements the discount strategy and it opens the strategy and apply it as it is. This makes your code easier, flexible, easier to extend. It avoids if-else condition like we did in the factory class, and it with a easy to add new strategies without modifying the existing one. Now, strategy is commonly asked with how will you design a flexible discounting or sorting mechanism, and that is where you can answer that I can use a strategy design pattern. So it is not going to ask you directly that what design pattern have you used. It can twist and turn saying that suppose I want to have the multiple ways of discounting, the new user discount, the Diwali discount, the Christmas discount. How would you decide at runtime which discount has to be applied? And that dynamical fetching of the class at runtime can be done through strategy design pattern. Also, it is a very good example of open close principle where you can add any number of discounting class just by implementing the discounting strategy. And at runtime, you can calculate that strategy and apply that discount at runtime. Now, this discount strategy is closed for modification, but it is always open for implementation with a new class. The fourth very important one is the observer design pattern, and 90% of us don't even know that we are using it since a lot of years. The observer design pattern is just a one-to-many relationship. For example, if you use WhatsApp, in the group suppose you create a group of your 5 friends. You send one message, hi, what is the plan for tomorrow? All the 5 people will be notified that you are expecting what is the plan for tomorrow. That is one-to-many relationship. One subject is trying to ask about all the observers what is expected as a new plan for tomorrow. That is what is an observer design pattern, where you are going to publish something, all the 5 are going to observe and respond to you. So you are the subject and all other dependents are the observers. Now, where do you use it in your real time? Again, a very good interview question. You use it in Kafka, in ActiveMQs, in RabbitMQs. In notification services, for sending the emails to your all the customers that discounts are up, the sale is going on. For event handling systems, for example, suppose you are a stock marketing application. Now you want to say that the stock price has changed. How would you let all your observers know? Then this is the way to do it. You create the list of observers like this. You register each an observer with yourself, and then when you want to notify that this stock name has the price of 10 rupees, then you create the observers of all the observer, update each and every of them. And this observer who has an update to be given can be the mobile user or can be the different kind of web user also. And when you have the real stock market change, then you can say that market notify all observers that TCS has this much amount of stock price. Advantages: it decouples the subjects and the receivers. It is easier to remove and add the notifiers or observers runtime dynamically, and it is working well for the event driven systems. Now, a very good twisted turn question that interview might ask you is that if suppose you are a e-commerce system, you have 10,000 users across the globe. How would you notify that 50% off is going on your app or on your system? You have to notify both the mobile users and your app users, and that is the way to do it. You can have your customers. Now you can have your mobile app customers, you can have your Chrome or desktop customers. Both of them are implementing the customers, and this is how you notify all your customers by registering them into your own e-commerce system and then updating that sale is going on with 50% off. So this is your go-to pattern when you want to design a notification kind of system. Many people ask you, design a WhatsApp chat. This is also what you can do when a group chat has to be created. So in modern systems, this is implemented via event-driven architecture using Kafka, RabbitMQs, or Spring Events. The last and the most important design pattern that is useful in a real enterprise application is builder design patterns. Now suppose you have an e-commerce system. Now in an e-commerce system, you want to get the user details where you might have 20-30 fields saying this is the username, this is the last name, this is father name, this is mother name, this is email, this is its address, this is permanent address, this is temporary address, this is home address, this is work address, this is office address, this is the office building area, this is city, this is age, this is email, thousands of fields. But what if the user does not want to add all this detail to a system and just want the basic necessity that this is my address, you are an e-commerce system, this is my order, giving my name, please give me the order that I have given at my address. Then you don't have to explicitly ask the user to fill all these details. You can just get his username, his email ID, his order details, and the address. And then you can leave all the other fields as it is. Just create a builder pattern like this and send only the requested details at the back end and create an object of that. So code becomes much more readable and maintainable. It avoids constructor problem. It ensures immutability because the builder pattern is always immutable. Now the builder pattern is beautifully embedded with Lombok. Whenever you use @builder annotation, it allows you to just create optional fields of the whole object and you can leave all the other optional fields as it is. So this is how beautifully you can use the builder design pattern in your complex system to just use simple 2-3 fields, create an object of it and get started, and you don't have to explicitly give all the other objects parameters the values. So that was all about the 5 design patterns. This is the bare minimum you should know before you go and approach to any interviews. Thank you.